I'm sorry. Like, really, really sorry. But I'm giving up on this. Okay, wait. Let's rewind and start from the beginning. So I keep hearing this phrase, stop following Scrum by the book, and it seems to be everywhere. So I finally managed to find some time and headed to the nearest library to hunt down that book. Naturally, I started with the S section, but surprise, surprise, no luck there. If any of you know where to find this elusive book, please drop the title in the comments. I really want to get my hands on it and give it a read. Okay, I admit defeat. I'm giving up the search, but if you have got the intel, please share. I scoured every possible section: history, business, philosophy, science, art, even academic journals. I even ventured into the realm of fiction. I checked out sci-fi too. Along the way, I found a book about one of Rocky's favorite bands, The Who. He would have loved it. I kept searching. Oh, look! An encyclopedia of the TV show Lost. Wow. I'm a huge fan of Lost. But wait, focus. I need to find the Scrum book now. I tried. It was tempting to get distracted, but no luck finding the Scrum book. Hi, I'm Art, a professional Scrum Master, and this series for anyone looking to achieve Scrum Master certification at any level, learn or update their Scrum knowledge, and boost their career as a Scrum Master. We'll tackle 3 levels of questions: fundamental, advanced, and expert, that you might face in your exams or real-life scenarios. We'll dive deep, analyzing questions from 3 different perspectives, understanding what for fundamental knowledge, how for advanced insights, and why for expert understanding. So let's dive into today's questions. Feel free to pause this video, take notes, and consider your answers.
The organization's management department has decided to change the organization's terminology to align more with Scrum, but they are not properly following the principles defined in the Scrum Guide. Choose the best option for what would likely happen. A. The organization's management department would feel more comfortable since the management will perceive the behaviors as unchanged. B. The organization may miss out on the true benefits of Scrum. C. The actual workflow of teams will not change. D. Minimal changes will occur because management lacks an understanding of Scrum's terminology. E. All of the above. F. None of the above.
Which 3 of the following are not aligned with Scrum core design and ideas? A. Running planning poker for estimating user stories. B. Changing Scrum terminology for tailoring Scrum to the business need. C. Code refactoring. D. Dedicating integration sprint for combining components and assets of the product. E. Test-driven development. F. Having Sprint 0 before for creating product backlog and user stories. G. Dedicating 2 hours for sprint planning for a 1-week sprint.
After sudden requirements from stakeholders, the management department decides to cancel the current sprint and asks for 2 days of sprint planning. The first day is for discussions with leads, and 1 to 2 hours the next day are dedicated to informing the team of the new sprint goals. During the discussions, management requires the team to run a hardening sprint and tackle technical debts, such as fixing bugs. During that day, as a Scrum Master, what action would you take in this situation?
Alright, I guess you have already taken some notes, so now let's see what Scrum Guide says about changing it. So according to the Scrum Guide 2020, changing the core design or ideas of Scrum, leaving out elements or not following the rules of Scrum covers up problems and limits the benefits of Scrum, potentially even rendering it useless. From my perspective, I would never recommend altering Scrum terminology or design. But unfortunately, people not only modify them, but also propagate misleading terms and designs. And one of the most famous changes is calling Scrum events to ceremonies or rituals. I won't delve into Googling the nuances between events, ceremonies, and rituals, but instead let's look how Rocky handles the daily Scrum event. Morning team, good news, authentication is complete. I have implemented GWT token generation and started integration it with our front-end authentication flow. So next I would focus on some error handling for some edge cases. And I have no blockers, but I would appreciate feedback from Lucy on the API design side. So see, this was simply an event. Like, did you notice Rocky was sitting? We don't even call it a stand-up. We call it the daily Scrum. Yet in some organizations, they refer it to as ceremonies. To me, the word ceremony feels a bit grand, like we are celebrating a wedding or giving out some Oscars. And the Scrum statue for the best supporting Scrum developer goes to Rocky! Wow, what an incredible! I'm truly touched that my work on integration the authentication module has been recognized in this manner. It's been an amazing journey, especially working with challenges of GWT token generation, and I share this recognition with every member of our team, from product owner to every stakeholder in our fantastic company. And a special shout out to Art, our dedicated Scrum Master. Right, I hear music, so they are hinting that it's time to wrap this up. But before I sprint away, I also want to give huge shout out to my parents. Hi mom, hi dad, I'm coming home, make dinner. Ritual sounds even too intense for me, like, in tribute to the spirit of rock music, I scattered these flowers. Yes, I've crafted the authentication module. I've integrated GWT token generation, but none of it would have been possible without my favorite tunes. Thanks to Ozzy Osbourne, thanks to Metallica, thanks to System of a Down, rock will never die. Changing terminology is just the tip of the iceberg. The real issue arises when they start altering the fundamental ideas and core framework. And it can lead to things like ignoring time boxes, maintaining multiple product backlogs for a single product, lacking transparency in the definition of done, requiring product owner to lead the daily Scrum, not respecting each other, and so on and so on and so on. Okay, now that we understand that Scrum Guide doesn't support changes to its core ideas and design, let's explore how we should adhere to the guide. And the key thing to understand here is that while modifications or changes are not supported, it doesn't yet mean that other techniques, processes, or methods aren't welcome. Yes, you shouldn't attempt to change the core design of Scrum, but as long as you aren't undermining it, you can and should use other techniques or methods. And actually, it's not just that you might use them, you need to. In our previous video, we discussed Scrum as a framework and highlighted that Scrum is deliberately incomplete, focusing mainly on what's, right? But however, figuring out how to implement Scrum is a challenge for you as a Scrum Master, and you may need to employ various practices and methods for that. Let's distinguish employing ideas from Scrum and employing ideas to Scrum. So when you employ ideas from Scrum, it's like borrowing. For example, you might like the idea of daily Scrum, but decide not to hold sprint retrospective or other events described in the Scrum Guide. In this case, you are borrowing just the idea of the daily Scrum. But can you say that running a daily Scrum makes your company fully Scrum compliant? No, right? So here is an analogy. I have a cake with strawberry and cream on it. If I eat only strawberry and cream, have I eaten the whole cake? So the problem arises when there is a lack of understanding behind events, artifacts, accountabilities, and rules of Scrum. And this can lead to minimal change, with teams not experiencing the full benefits of Scrum. And simply saying our organization follows the Scrum framework would then be misleading. Don't get me wrong, borrowing ideas from Scrum is okay. Not following the Scrum framework is okay too. Discovering the Scrum isn't the best fit for your organization or your team is also okay, but borrowing some ideas from Scrum and partially implementing them and calling that we are following Scrum framework is not okay because it simply isn't Scrum anymore. Now when we talk about employing ideas to Scrum, consider practices like user stories, planning poker, code refactoring, test-driven development, sprint zero, or integration sprints. These aren't explicitly mentioned in a Scrum Guide, but their absence doesn't mean they are not welcomed. Take user stories, for example. They are features written from the end-user perspective, focusing on adaptability and change. They emphasize delivering value and continual improvements. Planning poker, a technique for estimating user stories, fosters transparency and collaboration. It complements Scrum principles without contradicting them. Similarly, practices like code refactoring or test-driven development aren't detailed in a Scrum Guide, yet principles like lean thinking, waste reduction, complexity reduction, and quality improvement align with these practices. They support rather than undermine Scrum principles. Now, what about concepts like sprint zero, integration sprints, or hardening sprints? Let's quickly define them. So, sprint zero typically focuses on creating a product backlog, establishing workflow strategies such as coding standards or defining documentation. An integration sprint dedicates time to combining features into cohesive whole, and a hardening sprint, often seen as bug-fixing sprints, addresses technical debt. However, each has its challenges. And just one problem is enough to discredit these concepts. For example, sprint zero. What's the deliverable here? How can we ensure it provides a valuable and useful increment? Are we trying to create a perfect plan for product development? Integration sprint. Do we truly need it? If we are at the point of needing an integration sprint, it might indicate earlier missteps. Hardening sprint. This can lead to a focus on delivering something rather than delivering value. In some cases, meeting deadlines result in releasing unfinished work, creating technical debt, and necessitating additional hardening sprints. To summarize, it's crucial to understand that modifying the core ideas of the Scrum Guide and claiming it's still Scrum isn't permissible. However, adopting new techniques, processes, or tools that align with the core principles of Scrum is always encouraged. Alright, finally let's explore why the Scrum Guide emphasizes that altering its core design could diminish its benefits. So I began this episode by searching for the elusive Scrum book that some people reference when they say,
"Stop following Scrum by the book."
I didn't find such a book. Yes, there are numerous books, and for example, at the moment I am reading Jay Sutherland's books, who is the co-author of Scrum. I would also recommend Clinton Key's book, which offers a great example of using Scrum in game development, but I am pretty sure people are not referencing these books when they are saying,
"Stop following Scrum by the book."
okay, why? Why Scrum Guide says that changing its core design will limit its benefits? So these books are essentially stories and case studies from which you can learn a lot. However, since Scrum is applied across various fields, blindly adhering to the specific implementations described in these books isn't feasible. The only definitive source you can rely on is the 13-page Scrum Guide, which is abstract, straightforward, and intentionally incomplete. In essence, interpreting following Scrum by the book as adhering strictly to the Scrum Guide is crucial. If people suggest not implementing Scrum by the book in this context, it could be extremely risky. Scrum asserts that deviating from its principles can mask underlying issues. So, in a situation where management decides to cancel the current sprint due to sudden stakeholder requirements, you might refer to the Scrum Guide, stating it's the product owner's call to decide whether to cancel it or not. But you will likely receive a response like,
"Let's not follow Scrum by the book."
why? Because you also have to cover why part. You need to explain why. There is likely a lack of transparency between the Scrum team and stakeholders if sudden changes arise. Alternatively, the product owner may have prioritized backlog items in a way that doesn't add value. In such cases, transparency should be reviewed. It's essential to inspect how sprint reviews were conducted and organize meetings to identify challenges in stakeholder collaboration and within the Scrum team. Furthermore, transparency with broader organization needs inspection. In such scenarios, the decision to cancel a sprint might fail more on the organization than the product owner due to accountability misunderstandings. As a Scrum Master, you would consider meeting with the product owner to redefine the product goal, refine the backlog, and educate the organization on the repercussions of canceling a sprint, skipping sprint review, and sprint retrospective. These issues should also be discussed in the sprint retrospective and addressed in the upcoming sprint planning to accommodate new stakeholder requirements. In next scenario where management wants a 2-day sprint planning, with the first day dedicated to discussions with leads and requiring a team to run a hardening sprint for 1 day, followed by 1-2 hours the next day to inform the team of new sprint goals, you might disagree, citing that sprint planning is time-boxed to a maximum of 8 hours. However, the issue isn't just extending sprint planning. It's also about holding lead meetings, requiring a hardening sprint, and informing team about goals afterwards. This completely disregards Scrum principles. Firstly, having lead meetings introduces a hierarchical approach that undermines collaboration, transparency, and Scrum values, increasing uncertainty among team members. So this is critical because the organization may eventually need to invest time and resources in explaining the product's goal to reduce uncertainty. So asking the team to work on bugs while they are discussing sprint planning would be counterproductive. Therefore, as a Scrum Master, it's crucial to explain the concept of sprint planning and help organize it more effectively. It's the responsibility of the entire Scrum team to define the sprint goal. This means Scrum developers must be present in the sprint planning, not just informed about the goal, but actively involved in defining it. After all, they'll be working on it, right? Creating their sprint backlog, running daily scrums. So it's not just about saying,
Okay, now do this, now do that, and then do this one.
no, it's about collectively understanding what we are going to accomplish next. And now let's talk about the famous hardening sprint. Oh boy, here we go again. I bet you already know what's wrong with it. Say it. Yeah, say it. Exactly.
So, again, imagine this scenario. Stakeholders suddenly want something new and urgent. And we decide to cancel the sprint, stop our current work, pause everything. Then we are gathering our leads to discuss this issue and decide on the next steps. It might seem logical at the first glance, but this approach raises more problems than words can describe.
Alright, it's time for the answers. Let's check. So from know what section we understand that not adhering closely to the ideas in the Scrum Guide might cause us to miss out the true benefits of Scrum. So option B is correct. However, do you also agree that a workflow would essentially remain unchanged? Only minor adjustment might occur, and the management department might feel comfortable because they have simply changed terminology without fully grasping the underlying concepts. So the correct answer here is E, all of the above. Next, from know-how section, we have explored how we can introduce new techniques to Scrum that align with its core design. Using user stories and planning poker sessions, while not explicitly mentioned, doesn't contradict Scrum principles. As for changing Scrum terminology, that's a no-go. It's not supported. What about having an integration sprint? Absolutely not. Not supported. Now, test-driven development. Code refactoring, though not mentioned explicitly, it aligns with Scrum principles and is supported. Sprint Zero, definitely not. And finally, 2 hours for the sprint planning. As long as it's within the 8-hour time box and sufficient to define the sprint goal and plan the work, it's acceptable. From the Know Why section, we examined several cases illustrating why not following the core ideas of the Scrum Guide might limit its benefits. In these situations, whether it's an expert-level exam question or a real-life scenario, start by identifying which Scrum principles are being disregarded. For instance, we might see issues such as lack of transparency, accountability misunderstandings, communication challenges, disregarding Scrum values, improper implementation of sprint planning, or mismanagement of other events. Techniques not aligned with Scrum ideas might also be introduced. Once you have identified these issues, focus on consequences of such actions. Consider what problems they might cause. Then, propose alternatives that align with Scrum principles. What does Scrum suggest instead? Explain why your alternative solution is better according to the Scrum Guide. For example, having a 2-day long sprint planning session with hierarchical teams and then informing Scrum developers about the discussion contradicts Scrum principles. It might increase uncertainty. It might reduce transparency. And it disregards Scrum values. So instead, let's have a collaborative sprint planning session. like lasting up to 8 hours. Invite people who can help determine the sprint goals, such as stakeholders and other relevant individuals in the organization. And this approach ensures collaborative focus on a shared goal and maintains transparency. You can use similar approach to answer other situation-based questions or scenarios. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed the content, let me know in the comments. Feel free to suggest other Scrum topics that you are interested in for future videos. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay updated with our latest videos. Share it with your friends and see you soon. Bye bye!